This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
This is A Different Perspective with Kevin Randle. A retired U.S. Lieutenant Colonel, Kevin Randle has been studying UFOs for nearly 50 years. Kevin has investigated some of the most famous UFO cases in the world and has been consulted for dozens of documentaries about UFOs. Considered one of the leading experts into the Roswell UFO crash of 1947, Kevin has written more than 25 books about UFOs, including the recently published Roswell in the 21st Century. Now, here's the host of A Different Perspective, Kevin Randle.
And welcome. We are back, and I have a special guest with me today, Carol Rainey. I cannot believe I said it. Carol Rainey. I'm going to read this because her bio she sent me is rather impressive and rather long. Carol Rainey is a writer and a filmmaker who has produced, written, and directed award-winning PBS and independent documentaries on medicine and science. She was awarded grant funding for 15 documentary films from the National Institutes of Health. Once the films were complete, Rainey developed marketing and distribution strategies for the new products. Her narrative short film, Momma Gets Her Ready, won a National Endowment for the Arts Regional Fellowship and toured European museums with Los Angeles contemporary exhibits. She was married to the basically world-famous artist and the UFO researcher Budd Hopkins from 1996 to 2006. She co-authored with him the nonfiction book Sight Unseen, Science, UFOs and Transgenic Beings. In Sight Unseen, paranormal experience is used as an entree into the complex and startling breakthroughs in such fields as transgenics, bioengin-eering, neurobiology, and quantum physics. Rainey was a featured speaker at the Cosmos and Consciousness 4 in 2008 and at the International UFO Congress in 2004. And she has appeared in radio satellite tours on Westwood Run and ABC Radio. She lives in Brooklyn, New York. She brings to the table insight into the abduction phenomenon that she studied with Budd Hopkins. She was producing a documentary film about his work, and so she knows an awful lot about UFO abductions. She's also mentioned that she had been a member of on the board of advisors for the Intruders Foundation, but she resigned because she saw the research had stagnated. It hadn't gone anywhere, which is kind of something that Russ Estes, Bill Cohn, and I have discussed in the book, The Abduction Enigma, about how research really wasn't going anywhere. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about a UFO crash because that is something that is near and dear to my heart, and we'll get on with that. So let me introduce Carol Rainey. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Kevin. I think I need a shorter bio.
It fills up a lot of time, so we don't have to think. So it's a good thing to do.
All right.
You had mentioned in, I guess, our email discussions that you had resigned resigned from the Intruders Foundation, and I mentioned briefly kind of the reason why. Can you expand on that? What brought you to that point? What caused you to do that?
Well, a couple of things. One is very personal, but my husband's mistress was on the board, and there wasn't room for two women on the same board, two women associated with Budd. So that was a very, clear reason. And then also what I said to them was I'm sorry I wasn't more active in the Intruders Foundation board, because I genuinely thought those were strong, excellent people, an astronomer, an engineer, several therapists, people who were really dedicated and very smart, medical writer too. And their skills needed to have been put to use in being a peer with Budd in his research. And I began to feel that they were just being used to, lift the cartons of Coke and the bottles of wine for the seminars. And really, I don't think any of them ever wanted anything like that. They wanted to be part of a research team. And I was indirectly, because I was often there on the other side of the camera. But I told them, I think in the beginning I was very active and supportive in Intruders Foundation activities. But as time went on, in our house it was UFOs 24/7, and there was just no juice left for anything else. It was a really all-consuming thing that happened in that household. And what I felt I needed to say to folks, not that they might have observed this themselves, I felt the field of UFO research in general was just repeating itself. It was stagnant.
We're going to have to take a quick break. We will come back to that point just as soon as we can about the stagnation of the UFO research field. So we'll be right back with Carol Rainey right after these short messages. So stick around.
Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at www.drgibbswilliams.com.
Shamanism is recognized as a method to access the quantum level. Mastery of shamanic skills puts spiritual information and healing power into your hands. Path Home Shamanic Art School, a bonded Colorado certified occupational school, has met rigorous state standards, ensuring its director and instructors have the qualifications to teach the shamanic arts. Path Home offers its certification program in blocks of study. Block 1, a 5-day intensive, will be held in the beautiful mountain town of Coaldale, Colorado, October 13th through 18th. Registration deadline is September 12th. Experience journey trance, power animals, helping spirits, sacred space, and life purpose. Come discover your power. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, in the magical world of shamanism. Call 303-775-3431 or visit findyourpathhome.com.
This is Kevin Randle. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st Century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com. We are back with Carol Rainey, who was a member of the Intruders Foundation, who's been doing abduction research for many years, or had done abduction research for many years. You can find her at www.carolrainey, and that's Rainey, carolrainey.com, if you want to know more about her work and what she has done. When we left, we were kind of talking about the stagnation of abduction research, and I think all UFO research in general, a topic that I've touched on in other places and other times. Carol, what exactly did you see as the problem with the abduction research? Where was it stagnating?
It hadn't grown into any better way of doing research. It was just the same stories were told over and over. As people came into the living room and sat down and did the intake interview with Budd, I'd hear the same stories over and over, and just the names, the dates, and the places changed. So it really wasn't that fascinating after a while. You're kind of rolling your eyes a little bit and feeling restless. But, if I felt that the methods of measuring and quantifying information were getting better, I might have stuck around. But nothing like that has been put in place to my knowledge. It might have changed. I am not, firmly in the middle of the UFO community anymore. So I don't know. Somebody may have done that.
When you say you were hearing the same stories over and over again, did you get a feeling that they were concocted in some way, that while the person might truly believe what he or she was saying, that the story wasn't really based in reality?
Yes, several times. One was with two witnesses, alleged witnesses, 22 and 23, to the Linda Cortila case. One of them, as I was taping, just said to Budd, it was only when he read Witness. Now, this was 12 years after the event happened. He said he read Witness, and all of his memories came rushing back. And then he just parroted the book back to Budd. And that person then got later put up on the podium at an Intruders Foundation event where people paid, I forget, $25 or something to come in. And I just thought that I was just overwhelmed by that. People shouldn't have to pay for charlatans, basically. And there was another one along those lines. But, almost everybody who came in carrying either a Dave Jacobs book or one of Budd's books under their arm. So they came in pretty well established in knowing the right answers to how they should be feeling about all this. And,
well, when you say right answers, I'm struck by something that John Mack had said. He said it to Russ Estes and Bill Cohn on videotape, and he said it to Bryant in his book on Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind, which he was struck by sort of a marrying of the abductee to the researcher. In other words, if they believed in cold calculating aliens, they ended up with Budd Hopkins. If they believed with aliens in the Eastern philosophy, they ended up with John Mack. And if they were hybrid invaders, they ended up with David Jacobs, which would suggest that there's an implantation of the belief structure of the researcher in that specific abductees. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Absolutely. I have an audio taped support group session, the first one I was ever at, and I was really disconcerted by the way it was run. Now, remember that I was coming from close to 4 years of working with a rather large institute of many epidemiologists. And the money came from the National Institutes of Health. So I got very familiar with the way that research was set up. And that includes the way you set up support groups to gain information on how regular people feel about something, or how they're eating, or how they're, weighing themselves. But there's a protocol for that. And the first thing is, do not talk. You do not tell the participants of the support group what it is that you want them to say. And it has to be as pristine an environment as possible. But what would happen in the support groups that Budd did is he would ask a question, and then he would immediately jump in totally full of energy and enthusiasm, which is why he was a really sweet, infectious guy. I mean, his energy was infectious. It was wonderful. But so he'd jump in to answering the question by telling the people at the support group, whether it was, 25 or so people it might be, but he would tell them about a case that he was really interested in right now. And it sort of set the stage for what people would then be rewarded by feeding to him.
Well, when the people came in to these to be interviewed by Budd, whether it was in a support group or individually, you said a lot of them had read Intruders. Is that suggesting they were sort of primed into specific philosophy, or they believed they had been abducted and they just wanted Budd to validate what they believed, or were they truly concerned about some aspect of their life that was maybe going awry and thought this might be an answer?
I would say the latter most often. People would come because what they're reading or seeing on television suggests that whatever it is that's bothering them, the inability to have a relationship, or inability to hold down a job, or why you're scared of clowns, or why you never go to the dentist. There was some element of disruption in normal life that they thought maybe the alien abduction phenomenon might explain.
So they were looking for a specific answer, which was alien abduction explains my problems in life.
Yes, often. Not always, but certainly often.
Did they come in with their stories set in their minds, or were they sort of dug out through hypnosis? Was there anybody that had a clear, vivid memory of the abduction phenomena that did not require hypnotic regression to lead them into that place?
I only recall one or two people who felt that what they were talking to Budd about was all recovered consciously. It was almost always under hypnosis. When Linda Cortila told me on camera that 85% of her memories were recovered under hypnosis, I remember this was the first year I'm involved in this, right? So I just remember thinking, oh my God, that's not a good answer. That's not good. And, in fact, it turned out, in my way of thinking, to be really unfortunate that is how she got her material.
Well, Budd, I think, originally used somebody else to conduct the hypnotic regression sessions, but then he began conducting them himself. So what sort of training did he have to do to perform hypnotic regressions?
I think observation of 2, maybe 3 different psychologists and or psychiatrists. He did observe for several years. But I will say this, I think Budd was a really terrific hypnotist. You can often tell when a person is so deeply relaxed that memories will flood forward or can flood forward, or a confabulation of something they saw on television, something they walked past a showroom window, And something their mother said, that all flows together, and that's what comes out. You can't tell, really. But he was very good at getting people down into that deep level where they almost sounded drunk. There was a slurring of the speech and a slowness, and people really were turning their... It's a little bit like if you go into a virtual reality headset, you end up turning your body this way and that and peering forward and looking down at your feet because you think something's coming. Well, people who are deeply in a trance will do a lot of that. And, to me, that was interesting that I could see that happen.
Did you get a feeling that Budd, when he was conducting the hypnotic regression sessions, you get a feeling that he was kind of leading the people into where he wanted them to go as opposed to just gathering the information? Yes, it's a complex question.
It is, because I absolutely won't say that that's what he did in every occasion. But there were some pretty egregious errors of leading that are hard to let go. And one I wrote about, posted fairly recently on Jack Brewer's blog. It was the Budd's hypnosis with briefly a very famous singer who had a brain damaged and very deformed daughter. And the woman, when we went to visit her, said that the girl was having all of her 24 dysmorphologies were being reversed. And I'm thinking, oh no, that isn't medically possible. I mean, you can't reverse engineer a medical birth defect, but you can work with the problem, as in taking drugs to, lower the edema or getting the person to exercise so if they can walk on their own. You can help with those handicaps.
Was the singer the abductee, or was the daughter abductee, yes, or were both of them?
No, it was a singer. And I've been speaking with a member of the Intruders Foundation one day when something really embarrassing happened at home. I think several guys had been looking for a place to hide a birthday present for Budd, and they slipped into the pottery room of the woman who shared the house with Budd up on the third floor. And they had knocked a really, really heavy firing kiln off its base. And it would take some strength to do that. So the woman called us and was really upset and said she didn't know what was going on. And all of the board is sitting there, as Budd gets this call. And he stops and he gets really quiet, and everybody gets quiet too, because Budd is not often really quiet. So there's something happening. So everybody gets quiet.
Let me break in here because we're going to have to take a quick break.
Oh dear.
But we'll come back to that as soon as we get back. You can find Carol Rainey's website at www.carolrainey.com, and we'll be back talking about abductions and the UFO crash in Santa Rosa right after these quick messages. With this
Did
quick
you know
break.
that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we'll weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic right here on the Mutual Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
And we are back with Carol Rainey talking about abductions. You can find her website at www.carolrainey.com. And when we took our break there, we were talking about three burly guys trying to hide a birthday present for Budd Hopkins in the home of the woman who had been abducted. And they knocked her kiln off center, or off kilter, you might say. So Budd was upset about this.
Well, he got a phone call from the woman we shared the house with, and she was upset, saying, "How did my kiln get moved?" And he was sitting in the middle of, all the board members were around, and he got really quiet, and everyone listened, and he said, "The aliens did it." And he said they did that to show that they are present while you people are sitting here. And I remember feeling mortified. And I didn't know who had moved the kiln at that point, but it just seemed way too pat an answer. So after the meeting was over, I spoke to one of the board members and I said, "Oh, what do you think was going on there?" And he said, "Well, clearly, Bud is way too credulous to be doing this kind of research. He said, what I want to know is, was he always like this, or is this something that's come upon him in his later years? And I said, well, I can't tell you that because I was not there in the beginning. And so, I forgot to tell you an important part, is that sometime after Bud said the aliens did this to show their presence in the house, a few minutes later, two of the guys spoke up and said, sorry, I just need to correct you on this. We think we knocked the kiln off. We were hiding your birthday gift in it. So that's when. So later, the friend of mine said, it's just too credulous. What is going on here? And did this always happen? So I had been to the house of this singer, and it was a pretty disastrous meeting. But I went and listened to the tape from 10 years earlier when he first did hypnosis with this woman who had the unfortunately brain-damaged child. And, she was very thin-bodied with a sort of a big head and big eyes. You can see why they might think that. But, I was just sort of horrified that in that discussion with her afterwards and before and during the hypnosis session, he tells her that the reason the child was shaped the way that she was is because she was a botched alien-human experiment. The mother starts crying and crying, and Bud assures her again and again, well, we know that she's partly yours too, but she's partly theirs. And under hypnosis, he directly says to her, did they implant you with their seed? And she hadn't been saying anything like that up to that point. I think that piece of audio is on Jack Brewer's website too. And you can hear it. Go ahead.
Well, the impression I get from your discussion is Bud was very passionate about his research.
Yes.
He truly believed what he was saying based on his observation and his research with the people, but he might have been a little bit overly enthusiastic about where his research was taking him.
Yes, absolutely. And this is not, Bud was not somebody who, willingly made this all happen. I think that as an artist, as bits and pieces came into his sightline, I think that he began to shape the phenomenon himself. He was an artist. He almost couldn't help it. That's what he did.
But he's not consciously doing that. It's something that he's doing sort of subconsciously based on what he believes.
Mostly, but again, I can't get inside his mind other than to, listen to the tapes and watch the audio or watch the videotapes and read his books. I can't tell you that, but I do know that he was a true believer, and so is David Jacobs a true believer.
And so was John Mack. And so was John Mack.
Well, towards the end of John's life, he did write something. I was trying to find that and can't find the source for it right now. John said, I made a mistake in taking these reports as anything but metaphor. He said something like that. He said that was his mistake. And I need to find where that is written down or where he says that. And that's because he moved on to his next field of research in the possibility of life after death.
So he was moving. His research was evolving away from UFO abductions into another aspect, which is in essence the same thing. We gathered the information basically through hypnotic regression.
Well, he hadn't gotten that far. This was his first, and the odd thing is, I had called him just to catch up that summer in 2004, and caught him as he was packing to leave for London to meet up with a woman there who's very famous in these circles for her. She can communicate with her husband who died many years earlier, helps other people get in touch with people who died. Now, I don't want to make any judgments about this because I don't know enough about it, but that's where John was going to either stay with this woman or learn something from her. And he was at the very beginning of his research in this field. And he told me that this was his next new adventure. And I started laughing and I said, "Oh, John, you're going to be as screwed with that field as you were with UFOs." And he laughed too. And he said, "Well, stay tuned. I'll let you know what I find out when I get back." And of course, we all know he didn't get back.
Well, this kind of brings a question to mind. Is John Mack, did he come into the field? He was invited into the field by Budd. Is that correct?
Yes. Oh, yes, but it was he was recommended by a mutual friend that he should look into this. And I think Budd handed him a stack of unopened letters. And John just opened them and that's a pretty random suitable way for him to get knowledgeable about it, to see what people are sending him, and to just give him, letters taken at random, basically. And that gives you a pretty good cross-section of people's concerns. And as he read letter after letter, and I'm sure he also met several of people who worked with Budd, he said that these people are not insane, which I totally agree with. And he said I didn't know what was happening, and he needed to follow it up. And then he began to look into it himself.
John Mack said something that I thought was very interesting. He said that this, being an abductee, is not a group that somebody wants to join, a club nobody wants to join. And in the research that I had done with Russ Estes and Bill Cohn, it seemed to be that this was a club that people were clamoring to join, because it gave them a sense of purpose. It gave them access to another group of people who had similar belief structures, who had similar experiences, and it gave them sort of an identity that they may not have had up until that point. Is that something that you had observed?
Absolutely. And I think even I would say this, that phrase that John used was probably near the beginning of his getting started in this field. This is a club nobody would want to belong to. He literally repeated Budd's most common, his mantra, and he would speak it from podiums all around the world. And I noticed that both John and Dave Jacobs have used Budd's statements literally unchanged, many of them. And I think it's because Budd was extremely good in language, in being able to, speak convincingly and with a sense of integrity, so that people who heard something that explained a really opaque and delicate thing like this phenomenon, they would latch onto that phrase and just repeat it themselves. So I think that actually came from Budd.
I heard John Mack say it a couple of times. I don't know where it originated, but it struck me, and it was something that, as I said, we were doing our research. It seemed that people were clamoring to join the club because of, and then they would do outings. They would go out on picnics together, or take outings together, and all of that. So it's a club that you wanted to join, and your membership had to be remembering an abduction experience. The other thing. No,
I absolutely agree with you that. I mean, there could be traumatic, awful experiences people might remember, but ultimately it as you said, it does give them a new community, and it gives them, the beam of the. And I will say, Budd was very good at this too. He was a father figure to I don't know how many people. So if you get as Linda did, you get the beam of approval turned on you from this father figure, this famous figure, you're in a pretty good place, actually.
So he was a very charismatic man.
Absolutely.
And spoke with a sincerity that people just seem to latch onto and accept.
Yeah. Yes.
So he also, and he was responsible for actually bringing the abduction phenomena to the forefront, because people had talked about it prior to Budd Hopkins and Intruders, but it never got the traction that came with Budd Hopkins.
Right. Well, he was very, very good on television shows, and he fought very fast on his feet and had a great repartee, and he was just very good at this. So he brought both David Jacobs and John into this field, and I think in the beginning they pretty much took Budd's perspective on this, and then John started seeing more spiritual dimension in it, or the possibility for spirit. And Dave Jacobs, of course, never saw any spiritual aspect to this at all.
He saw it as an invasion and the creation of hybrids to take over the earth. We're going to have to take another quick break here. I'm with Carol Rainey, whose website is www.carolrainey.com, so you can take a look at that. We're going to try to get to the Beanie UFO crash case in Santa Rosa, New Mexico in the last few minutes before we have to go away. I did write about that in the book Crash When UFOs Fall from the Sky, so you can take a look there. And I also did something on my blog, which is at www.kevinrandle.com. But we will be back with Carol Rainey in just a few minutes, right after this.
As host of Dialogue with Divinity, I am thrilled to join the X-Zone Broadcast Network and their growing number of affiliates. My quest for a connection to the divine ignited my successful career path as an international spiritual counselor for over 40 years, an author of 4 books, and well-known metaphysical educator. My clients call me their spiritual mama. So my job is to offer you a radio show to help you grow spiritually with wisdom and get specific tools from guests who are experts in their field. Tune in to Dialogue with Divinity and be part of the conversation with Spirit. My goal, your happy soul. For more information, please visit my website at johannacarroll.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Coming soon to the X-Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randle, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who would like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net. This is Kevin Randle. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com.
What Happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold.
We are back with Carol Rainey. We've taken up more time talking about abductions than I wanted to. I wanted to get to this UFO crash in Santa Rosa, California, Santa Rosa, New Mexico, that Budd had investigated. Can you set that up a little bit for us quickly, Carol?
Sure. I'll tell you when I came into it. It was in 1997. But it told me about this very folksy woman who was reporting and giving all kinds of names associated with it, that she'd been riding shotgun in a homemade ambulance, and they rushed out into the desert, and she saw some debris, and she saw several little bodies, and she said where their parents, and the state troopers who were on site said they don't have any parents. And she loaded them into the station wagon, and they whizzed back to town to this unbelievably tiny little hospital in Santa Rosa that was run by nuns. And Beanie says that she knows exactly how big they were because she could get an entire torso on one of her x-ray plates, which would be, I don't know, something like 4 feet long. And she said then there was only the doctor who was there, and very, very shortly the Air Force came in. She called him a bird colonel. I don't know what that is. You might.
That would be in 06.
Oh,
that would be in 06. Right. He one rank up from lieutenant colonel, one rank below brigadier general. I just throw that in.
So she says that he stormed in, had people and a big truck outside, and he took everything, including her notes, including her x-rays. So basically there was nothing left to prove, this thing happened.
But what she's saying is, what she's saying is this was an alien spacecraft crash, and they had recovered the bodies and some of the wreckage and taken it to the hospital in Santa Rosa, New Mexico.
Yes.
And there they had done some x-rays of the individuals. They have made whatever notes they would be required to make, and an Air Force officer came in and removed every trace of evidence from the event.
Yes. And she was naming names. I'm looking at a letter here from Walt Webb in March 15th, 1995. He was the original investigator. He was the primary investigator on this case. And when they lost their financial support from one of the people who often supported things like this during those years, Walt had to go find a job, so he left it up to Budd, but he sent a very detailed list of what needed to be done, who needed to be talked to, and he also communicated with Beanie. It was hard to tell from just talking with her, did this really happen or did it not? So it was only when I came back home and read through the file that I found Walter Webb's notes. And he basically tells Budd, I'm very, very concerned about all the inconsistencies in Beanie's testimony, and here is a list of people that you and or Beanie need to contact, people she's mentioned. And I don't think they contacted any of them. I went with them in Santa Rosa to visit the widow of the ambulance driver. And I guess the ambulance driver kept a trip ticket and he could bill the U.S. government. And so Beanie she talked a lot. And, in this widow's home, she went on and on and on and on and on. And, she and Budd were trying to get this very elderly woman to say yes or no or to give some detail. And she said, I didn't pay any attention to the business. She said, I just didn't. And finally they got her to say that, she sort of remembers that her husband was upset because a trip ticket was taken, but she has no idea what year that was. So that's the only confirmation we have for that, other than Beanie's report.
So the documentation that they were chasing, which would have been the trip ticket, they did not discover.
Yes.
They did not find it. And the elderly woman seemed to suggest that somebody might have come and gotten a trip ticket at some point, which really isn't much in the way of confirmation.
No. She seemed as if she was. I guess I could post that on YouTube at some point. She seems to just be either wanting them to be quiet and go away, or she's being nice, but she also might remember something like that. She said she remembered that at one point her husband, the driver, was very upset about something. She didn't exactly attach, this trip ticket to Beanie's event. She couldn't do that.
Well, you had said
we don't know.
You had said that there were a lot of names involved for confirmation.
Yes.
Was any of the witnesses followed up on? Could they find any of the witnesses? Was there any?
I don't believe anyone was followed up on.
So
Budd pretty much took it over from Walt, and he had very little respect, I guess, for Walt, unfortunately. And to my knowledge, he never called him and kept that spirit of co-investigators. He didn't keep that going. It was all his case after that.
Did you have a chance to talk to Walt Webb about this?
Yes, I did, several times.
And what was Walt's impressions?
He was angry. He said he didn't deserve to be treated with such disrespect. It made him seem like a goon who had no people skills and no ability to research.
No, I was more looking for what was Walt's impression of the UFO case. I mean,
he felt it was way too far out in terms of time. It was 30 years, and there's really only one eyewitness, Beanie, and she has about 4 or 5 different contradictions in different stories that she has told to people. And what I noticed when I was there is that she started to embroider around the edges of her story. Her older sister, she said, and I have this on camera too, her older sister was the nurse that Glenn Dennis ran into during the Roswell event.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me get this straight. She is saying that Naomi Self, the non-existent witness from the Glenn Dennis nonsense, is a corroborative witness for this Santa Rosa story?
Yes, but the sister is deceased, unfortunately.
But we've managed to drag in the Roswell case now,
right?
And so it's Glenn Dennis's nurse she ran into, and
yes. So she just threw that in, and then she talked about her own abduction, and I kind of looked over at Budd like, wait a minute, she never talked about being an abductee the last time we were here. So I don't know, I think she is gone now. We can't ask her anymore. But there was a lot of evidence that could have been followed up. There's a dispatcher's name. There are 2 state troopers' names. There's a sister, Assumpta, who was at the hospital, and another sister, and the Dominican headquarters in Grand Rapids was mentioned. Dr. Galvin was mentioned. Jimmy's warehouse was where they kept the car, and there might have been some witnesses there, or Jimmy's son might have talked.
But when we boil it down to its essence, there's all this possibility of other corroborative witnesses, but none of them have been talked to.
Not to my knowledge, no.
So that's stuck.
What made me upset.
Yeah, I get that. I understand that. I'm feeling the same way.
Well, I had made a short film out of it, and he went out on the road using that as his what do they call it? His PowerPoint, in a way, to attract people to the story. But when I got in the folder and found Walt's notes to him, more than notes, long letters saying this witness, and that one, and I knew they hadn't been talked to, or they certainly weren't anywhere that I'd been told. I said, how is this proof of a crashed saucer? Doesn't prove anything. But her case ends up in Ryan Wood's book about crashed saucers, so it becomes part of history. But it isn't. It's created history, and that is really annoying. I don't know how the UFO field is going to get itself into mainstream research that's respected if this kind of crap goes on.
Well, we're going to have to end it here, I'm afraid, because we were just really out of time. This has been absolutely fascinating. I would like to have you back at some point, and we can maybe do a little bit longer program and go into some of these things a little bit deeper if you're willing to do so.
Okay.
But
I can.
I'm just absolutely fascinated by this whole thing, especially the way some of these things have collapsed. You can read more about or learn about Carol Rainey at www.carolrainey.com. And the case for the crash in Santa Rosa, I published a synopsis of it in April of 2011, I believe, that gives you some of the details of it. But just put Santa Rosa into the search engine and you'll get it. We will see you next time on A Different Perspective.